Today we're going to talk about drying process of oil, also the water mixable one, it's the same. We're going to talk about the adhesion, the type of ground you need. And so, drying process and the adherence. Now, think about acrylic paint or whatever water-based paint. The drying is nothing else than a physical process. The paint dries because the water inside evaporates. And the drying time is the time necessary for the water to evaporate. With oil, this is very, very different. In oil color, whether it's traditional or Cobra, there is not a solvent inside the paint. Remember from last time, there's no water inside the paint, there's no spirits inside the paint. It's pure oil color. And in oil, there's nothing that evaporates. Oil has a very, very different drying process. It's a chemical process. Actually, oil is liquid because the oil consists of very flexible chains of molecules. Now, this oil, once exposed to the air, will start to consume oxygen. And the oxygen will bond together the flexible chains of molecules into a steady construction, a network. That's also why oil color dries so slowly compared to, for example, acrylics. That's one. Second one, the adherence. Acrylic is a very good, let's say, glue. You can glue anything together with acrylics. Paper, cardboard, wood, stone, whatever. Oil is not a glue at all. When, for example, I take two sheets of paper with a little bit of oil in between, I can take them apart after an hour, after a day, after a week, after a year. It's not a glue. The adherence of oil is very, very different. For oil, I need a substrate that is somewhat porous, somewhat absorbing. And what happens? As soon as you apply the paint, a little bit of oil out of the paint gets into these pores, and when the paint is drying, the paint film will adhere itself with, let's say, thousands, millions of small anchors inside these pores. That's the drying of oil. Now, suppose I would take a piece of paper. Can I paint with oil on paper? First, of course, you put it on and you say, yeah, well, that's okay. But this paper is absorbing, but it's far too much absorbing. It will suck all the oil out of the paint, and the oil will go through the paper. I will show you in a minute that the oil already appears on the backside. And also, due to the drying process, forming this network, in time, the drying process of oil will completely destroy the paper, the consistency of the paper. So, just paper is not enough. Let's see if I already can show you this. Not yet, we have to wait a moment until the oil comes through. But anyway, this is not the good way to paint. For oil, we always need a specially prepared substrate. You can paint on paper, you can paint on cotton, you can paint on linen, you can paint on wood, but only if this substrate is sufficiently prepared. Now, the traditional way to prepare a substrate, so this is, let's say, linen, cotton, we apply a layer of pre-sizing, and in the traditional way, this pre-sizing was made out of a rabbit skin glue, hare skin glue, or bone glue. And with this pre-sizing, you actually close your substrate from the absorption of oil. But this glue is not sufficiently absorbing for a good adherence for the oil to put in its anchors. So on top of this glue, we would apply a preparation layer, an absorbing one. Traditional way to make a preparation is, for example, a white oil color heavily cut with chalk, calcium carbonate or something else, to make it porous. Now, this is traditional. This two-step preparation, nowadays, we can do with a product specially developed for the adherence of oil, a gesso. The gesso fulfills the two functions of the pre-sizing and the preparation in one time. But suppose you have a piece of fabric that is openly woven, then the gesso would come out on the back side, which is not, technically it's not a problem, but it's not nice to see it. So in that case, you would pre-size your canvas, for example, with the pure acrylic binder, or as it is sold in the shops, you know, these already prepared boards or canvases, they are actually pre-sized with a bone glue, because no glue gives that much tension to your canvas, and that's what we like, right? Like a drum. Okay, we're a few minutes later now, and when we turn the page where we apply the oil, you know, you see clearly the oil is coming through the paper. And there'll be more. Later it will be growing, it will be bigger. The oil is sucked away from the paint. The pigments will be unprotected on your substrate. They crack, fall off, the oil will destroy the paper. Now, because Cobra is water mixable, I noticed that quite some people think that you can combine Cobra with acrylic paint because it's also water mixable. But take care. I really would not recommend that. While the paints are still wet, there seems to be no problem whatsoever. You know, put Cobra on my palette, put some acrylic next to it, take my painting knife, mix them, and it goes really smoothly. No problem whatsoever. But due to the oxidation, the chemical drying process of oil, in time the oil will get harder and harder and harder. After centuries, it almost gets as hard as glass. Acrylics, on the contrary, will remain elastic forever and forever. After the evaporation of the water, a plastic film is left. And this plastic film is moving due to changes in air temperature, air humidity. And when the oil gets harder, the acrylic will still be very elastic. You get tension differences, and this may cause cracks, etc., problems in our paintings. Okay guys, that was today's episode. Hope to see you next time. And we're gonna get into starting a painting. Bye bye, have a nice day.